and welcome to the third session of the E-Freight Exchange, sharing lessons, shaping action under the eFast India initiative. It's been wonderful to see the momentum this community has been building, and as we continue to deepen our collective understanding of the entire electric freight ecosystem, especially through real-world experiences and hearing from leaders in this ecosystem. Over the past few months, what this platform has helped us do is spotlight early developments across India in terms of deployment of electric freight vehicles from the LCV segment to the MHDV segment. The goal has been extremely simple. We have to learn from those who are already implementing solutions on ground so that we can help accelerate the scale up and confidence and clarity amongst our peers who are trying to enable this ecosystem and deploy electric trucks, electric freight vehicles on the road. Our first session was focused on the ELCV segment, where we explored and lessons from the urban logistics and early businesses in the urban logistics to see how scale is happening for the ELCV segment. Our second segment, we had deep diven into the e-HDV segment, specifically in the cement use case, which has been one use case that has been taking up electric HDVs, very quickly and has been transitioning the highest to have zero emission operations. Now, specifically in this third session, we want to shift our focus to one of the most closely watched and fastest evolving areas in the e-freight segment, that is battery swapping, especially in the heavy duty application. Now, battery swapping is no longer a fringe conversation in India. Over the past few years, we've seen that traction taking up in the 2 and 3-wheeler space. But in the past 1 year, we've seen that traction happen in the heavy duty segment as well, specifically in routes which have demanding duty cycles, right? Whether it has been to reduce the vehicle downtime, unlocking the higher asset utilization, enabling different models like battery swapping or energy as a service models, and creating corridor-based electrification for swapping, which is emerging as a powerful enabler for freight electrification in the HDV segment. And soon maybe we might see it in the MDV segment as well, specifically in predictable freight flows and constrained charging window where fast turnaround is very essential, right? So India has already begun witnessing those early formation of swappable enabled trucks. And today it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Rajiv Singh, a seasoned business leader with deep experience of scaling founder-led companies into high growth sectors. Rajiv ji specializes in designing and executing omni-channel growth strategies, always combining strategic vision with rigorous on-ground execution. He's currently a chief business officer at Blue Energy Motors TAAS, where he's helping build India's ecosystem for heavy-duty electric trucks, including the deployment of swappable battery solutions and supporting green energy infrastructure. Across his previous roles, he has steered large-scale EV infrastructure rollouts, pioneered battery swapping models for heavy-duty trucks, led omni-channel expansion in education tech, and helped build scalable digital plus physical platforms that went on to successful IPOs. He is widely recognized for his customer-first mindset, data-driven approach, and strong deal-making abilities, always bringing a high sense of ownership and trust into every challenge he takes on. With battery swapping poised to play a pivotal role in India's freight ecosystem, we couldn't have asked for a more experienced leader to guide today's conversation. And with that today, please welcome me in welcoming Mr. Rajiv Singh to lead today's conversation. Rajiv ji, over to you.
For the lovely introduction. Just a brief, I think as we go along in the EV space, the idea is to keep an open mind, number one. Number two, I think no individual entity, no individual person or group can kind of move the needle as much as we can with a collective and a collaborative effort. I think these are the 2 or 3 thoughts and the principles we keep in mind as we go along. And you will see as the story unfolds that there could be challenges and there could be solutions, but you can't pick and point a finger at any one person to say, if this person does it or if that agency does it, it happens. I think we all need to put ourselves in action mode or in execution mode and get things done. So that's the preview or the preamble to this entire session. And I would request if we could share the PPT, then we are happy to.
Totally agree with it.
Blue Energy Motors, I mean, that's the company I represent right now. And we are essentially in the alternate fuel space. There has been a deployment of LNG trucks in the country, more than 1,100. It's taken some time to reach this kind of figure. And now we are moving into the EV space. And the good learning is that with alternate fuels, it's not as smooth or as predictable as earlier technologies. So there is something we do on a daily basis where we kind of come back and see what are the problems, what are the challenges we face, and we keep forming a strategy. We keep evolving from where we were to where we want to be. So I think the key word here is leading the change on the road. And the vision is to be a zero emission truck technology company. I think you will hear technology and manufacturing coming together in the truck space again and again, because whatever we are seeing right now in the EV space, it's more about being connected vehicles rather than individual products. The mission is to create a clean technology alternative to decarbonize the environment. And again, here we need an immediate solution. And to get that immediate solution is just not in isolation, just a solution, but a solution which kind of gives you the economic returns, because you're not creating something new which people have not used. People have used trucks for decades. I think it's 70, 75 years in India. As you get into this mode of asking people to transition, change, evolve, you got to give them a commercial construct as to how this will happen and how it's sustainable advantage. Yeah, the next one. So this is what we see as the opportunity in India. It's 4 million vehicles now. It looks like 900, I mean 800 million uh, in something like 7 to 10 years. And that essentially means that with each truck on the road, the emission, the carbon emissions, the pollution, the carbon particulates are going to increase. We have a basic statistic which says that each diesel truck emits around 110 tons of CO2 per year. You can do the math that as this grows, as this number grows from 4 million to 8 million, what is the state of our country, our environment, our pollution index going to be? So we need to kind of increase alternate energy trucks. There are two parts. One is obviously the new 8 million trucks which come in a year. And that's one piece. But the other piece is also to look at the existing truck park which exists, which is many, many millions of vehicles. Our country does not have a very regulated or a standard replacement policy. So you'll find trucks of all ages and sizes available there. But I think if you crack the commercial ecosystem, which I just spoke about, you have two markets open for you: the new trucks which people buy to replace the aging vehicles, as well as the aging vehicles themselves. Yeah, the next one. Yeah, so Blue Energy Motors is India's #1 green truck original equipment manufacturer, OEM. Uh, like I told you, we've 1,100 trucks on the road, mostly LNG. EV has just started, but we already have around 40, 50 trucks, some on basic trial, some on commercial deployment. Our trucks have covered more than 84 million kilometers, and this says a lot because this shows there is stability in the product. This shows that there is an engineering superiority in the product. And this shows that under the Indian conditions, which are one of the toughest in the world, these trucks survive. We have helped to reduce 23,000 tons of carbon dioxide, nearly a million trees. And that's a big figure. It might not look as big as what some other countries are talking about, but if you look at what India has been given and its ambitious target of having some kind of green energy, I mean, reduction in CO2 emissions by 2030, 2050, 2070, I think this will be one of the basic contributing factors. To service these trucks, we have more than 40 company-owned, company-operated centers. We have a facility in Chakan where we are capable of producing around 10,000 trucks per annum. As I said, connected trucks is becoming the buzzword, technology, engineering, heavy load movement. And with this, because as we become newer OEMs, we have a very seamless integration and a very close relationship with our customers. We need to work with them to get a 98% uptime. And I'll tell you why this is very important and in the coming slides. And as we have grown the alternate fuel trucks, we also have had drivers who are trained, drivers who never, were driving trucks before and now come into the system. And people are now finding some kind of status or some kind of respect in being a truck driver of an alternate truck. In fact, we had some trucks in some assignment at the JNPT port where we transitioned from diesel to electric, and some of the drivers refused to go back, to diesel trucks. I think it became more of a status, number one. Number two, I think there was more respect in what they were doing. And number three, I think they just had a more enjoyable experience in working with an air-conditioned cabin, a better truck to drive, and less fatigue at the end of the day. The next one. So, where we are as of today, like I said, uh, we want to electrify corridors. Now, there are two approaches to this. One is that you go, bottoms up, or you go top down. The top down is you go and say, I'll kind of electrify the corridors and electric truck sales will follow. Bottoms up approach is we have been going to consumer clients, we are going to LSPs and saying, let us electrify your route. And as we do pieces of these routes and they get electrified, they will form a corridor themselves. But I think at some point in time, you need to decide the direction you're going to take. And we took a directional call that we will own the Bombay Pune freight corridor. And we have done this in no small measure. There are two swap stations operational at Chakan and Talegaon, along with a charging station at Kalapur. We have more charging stations coming up at Bhiwandi, Ranjangaon, Bilwara. Now, whenever I say swap station and charge station, in some points there are isolation. There will only be charge stations. There will only be swap station. In most cases, they might be interchangeable, where we start with a charge station, develop capacity, and morph it into a swap station. But these are all, I think, strategies to be taken on the ground level, depending on the traffic, on the route, on the turnaround time, on the intensity of the routes, etc., etc. So if you see left-hand bottom corner, that's what we've done. Tarapur, Bhiwandi, Kalapur, Talegaon, Chakan, Ranjangaon. There's one place which we've just added to the list, and that's JNPT. So if you see a lot of goods coming from out of town come to Bhiwandi, which is a distribution center, and there it goes in all directions. So Bhiwandi is a start point. Kalapur is something which we need very desperately because when it goes to Pune, there's a very steep and sharp gradient which comes along the way. And unless your truck is 100% charged, very less chance of it making it, to your destination. Talegaon is a top up. You can swap, you can charge. Chakan is our swap station in the most intense industrial zone in Maharashtra. Ranjangaon is where we are developing because the MIDC footprint is increasing from Talegaon, Chakan, Ranjangaon. So if you see this, understanding that JNPT is a great source of origination of traffic, Bhiwandi is a great source of distribution of traffic, and from Chakan and Talegaon, the finished goods which come back for export or for distribution back again to the rest of the country, this kind of serves as an origin destination pair which has been electrified. On the right side, if you see the big photograph is of a swap station, and there what you see inside in the space which you can't see, I mean where it's opaque, are three batteries. These batteries are swappable batteries. The battery which you see on the back of the cabin is a discharge battery. The truck is coming from a route. The battery's been discharged. There's a crane which you see the red color, the mechanical crane. This will lift the battery from the truck and put it into one of the charging slots which is inside, which you can't see. It then picks up a charged battery from one of the three slots where the batteries were charging, and it puts it back onto the truck. This happens in less than 5 minutes in the best case scenario, and around 7 minutes in the worst case scenario. All depends on the familiarity of the driver navigating the truck because of alignment and other issues which happen. On the top left, you will see a swap station, which is just a blow up of what you see, on the right side. But that's how it looks. The batteries are housed inside the shelter. The canopy is with the sensors, cameras, etc. And the space in the middle is for the alignment of the truck for the swap to take place. Yeah, next one, please. So challenges for EV adoption. So one part is from this slide, and then I'm going to just give you some story which I want to share with you guys. So there's range anxiety, obviously, because how do I get from point A to point B? I myself have an MG Windsor, and sometimes I can't get up just in the morning and say, let's take the car out. I need to see the charge. I need to check with the entire support staff. Is there charge? Can I charge and then leave? It's not like an ICE vehicle where I'll just kind of put the key in the car, and if I see the petrol tanks on empty, I can go and fill up. The second is that even if I do reach a charger, or I do have a charger, how much time is it going to take? Which brings me to the third point, is that how many such places can I charge? Not everybody has ability to charge in the house, and especially in commercial environments like trucks, godowns, stockyards, all are common properties. Sometimes don't have very great parking facilities. Individual chargers and individual names, sometimes you don't get that high capacity or so easily. The fourth is the high upfront investment, where technically a diesel truck, 28 to 32 lakhs to 34 lakhs for a 55 ton. In an EV truck, if you would take the whole combination of the truck, charger, and the battery, it's around 95 lakhs to a crore. High TCO. So obviously, when you have a high upfront cost, it would result in a high operating cost and a high ownership cost, which then needs to be settled. Now, these challenges are all being addressed in some phase or the other. But let's go to the next slide, where there seems to be very obvious solutions for these challenges. So for the limited range, there's unlimited range. And the unlimited range, what we say is that you might not achieve it by just charging. You might achieve it with swapping. Because what happens is, if you go to every charging station and wait for an hour and a half, it loses your total number of kilometers which you can do in a day. It removes the efficiency of the truck and the driver in terms of number of kilometers covered. But if you just switch it around to swapping, you can swap a truck in 5 minutes, and that sometimes is less than the amount a truck would take to fill diesel in a pump. If you just go through a scenario of a truck filling diesel in a pump, you might fill the tank in 7, 10, 15 minutes. But what if there were around 10 trucks waiting, for diesel to be filled? It'll completely change the dynamics. So that's where we say battery swap gives you unlimited range. There's a network of swap stations. So basically, I don't see that the range of the battery or the intensity of the battery needs to kind of expand. If you put your swap stations at scientifically identified locations, somewhere, a lot of trucks today move at around 120 to 150 kilometers. But if you can articulate with the corridor movements, the origin destination pairs, the toll collection, there are a lot of data available, not low hanging, but it's available. And you scientifically triangulate, plot the locations, there's a good chance you can cover the country in a very optimized fashion. So you have range, which is, it's not technically unlimited range, but with battery swapping and a network of swap stations, you build the unlimited range. Energy as a service and lowest TCO, they go together. In energy as a service, what we are doing is we are removing the battery from the upfront cost of a truck. And this allows the initial upfront of the cost of the truck to come down by as low as high as 35 to 40%. So assume I said the figure of 95 to a crore. If I were to split the truck would come for something like 60, 65. The battery would be 30, 35. The battery as a service, or the energy as a service, allows me to keep the battery on the OEM's balance sheet. The customer just finances and buys a truck. What this does for him is, now his entire energy and battery cost is an operating cost, which he has to pay only if he does the kilometers, which kind of reduces his fixed liability if he had bought the full truck with no business. With energy as a service, with swapping, doing more kilometers, you do achieve the lowest TCO in the market. I think today a lot of routes can be optimized to be slightly little bit more expensive than diesel if a diesel truck was being used, but more of them, if you use energy as a service and if there's a minimum guarantee of kilometers, you're on par with diesel, if not cheaper. Yeah, the next. So let me just, in fact, just go back. So, the problems and solutions, I don't think it's as easy as to say it's just these four or five. I would just like to take you back, to uh, why would EV truck growth be a challenge? I just feel it's because nobody's trying to own the system. You know, we argue about batteries and range and charging speed subsidies, but I think the problem is that the ownership model compared to a diesel is broken down. And if you just technically go back, for 100 years, somebody could ship a truck. The fuel would be somebody else's problem. The infrastructure would be the government and the oil companies. Electricity capacity was not really figured out. Training was dealers would do it, and residual market would be a combination of demand and supply, and the market would figure it out. But I don't think the EV trucks work like that. I don't think it's just a product. It's like a distributed energy system on wheels. You know, so OEMs are dependent on things they don't control, like charger uptime, grid stability, battery health, insurance, technician training, residual value. So I just feel that, besides the four or five problems which I've suggested, I think it's a mindset issue where, someone needs to own the whole system, and someone who can get the electric connection, someone who can take the battery on the balance sheet, someone who can kind of absorb the friction between the government and energy companies, someone who can kind of reduce the system dependency. So my whole thing is, and I keep talking to Kaustubh about this, is the amount of collaboration and the amount of consulting which is required in this business is much more heavy and much more deeper than anything we've encountered up till now. But the positive side is the opportunity is huge. Yeah, can we just go to the next slide? So just from a TCO and economics, I mean, we have something which we took on a apple to apple comparison. We took certain assumptions of a daily route of 400 kilometers, 30 days working, and the application was heavy haul. And if you go to the next slide, we had data and we've kind of compiled the kind of savings and the differentiators in the energy as a service space. Uh, can we change? So if you see them, we took four matrix and compared them. The energy, the time stop, the net available hours, daily distance. So whenever there was a refueling and a EV charging, 15 to 20 minutes to 2 to 3 hours. But while on the swap column, you see 5 minutes. Uh, you know, the availability of the trucks is 100%, and the available hours for duty were 12 hours driving, 9 hours on charging, 12 hours on swap again. And the daily distance, 400 on diesel, 300 on charging, and 400 on swap. So if you see, the swapping and the energy as a service model allows you greater opportunity to be equal to or less than diesel than a pure charging. However, I will not say that charging is the only solution or swapping is the only solution. I think as a mix and match, and as the circumstances and the routes demand, I think there needs to be a logical and a scientific solution to what you put out on the road at that point in time. So if you see the extra productivity from swapping and energy as a service, you get around 2 to 3,000 kilometers a month. You get a 25% utilization gain, and you get a TCO reduction. So when you get better ergonomics, you get 100% AC comfort. The fatigue of the driver is less. He can drive more. There's no charging loss because we are swapping the batteries. The next. So the advantage of swapping, I mean, as a summary, there's instant refueling and there's a reduced charging downtime. It's like going to a diesel pump. You go in 7-10 minutes. In fact, a battery swap is even faster than filling up a diesel tank. Because you can move out in 5 to 7 minutes, the asset utilization is much, much higher. You have lower upfront costs because, like I explained in the earlier slides, Blue Energy Motors, truck as a service division, takes the battery on their balance sheet. They charge you only when you come to charge. When you come to charge, the charge you pay to BEM-TAAS, Blue Energy Motors Truck as a Service, is the cost of electricity, the cost of the charging infrastructure which Blue Energy Motors has put up, and the charging overhead, the overheads which we have for running the operations of the swap station, and a profit. Uh, Better battery management. When you break up the truck and the battery, though we say that 35% to 40% of the cost is less, but what people don't realize is that 80% of the headache is less. Now, people manage trucks, but battery being such a new technology, battery being such an evolving technology, battery being so expensive, even small changes in the way you kind of charge, in the way you maintain, in the way you operate, the spare part allocation can completely change your total cost of operations, because even one battery, if you don't manage it properly, can cause a huge dent in your profitability and your books. So better battery management, because BEMTAS, Blue Energy Motors Truck as a Service, specializes in managing these batteries. It's like you managing one battery at home and we managing 5,000 batteries commercially. So they can be managed, they can be refurbished, they can be reused. We have technologies to extend the lifespan. We also have the ability to have second life, where these batteries can then go, for any stationary storage systems, etc. Swap stations can also act as someone to use extra energy and then give back to the grid. Usually, it's always we pulling from the grid, but sometimes they also is sometimes extra electricity is generated. We don't know what to do with it. If we can't store it, it's wasted. So, because of the high capacity of these batteries and swap stations, there is ability of storing energy produced at different times, stored for a bit, and then used for the vehicles when required, rather than it just going waste. The next one. So last, like I said, this issues of EV adoption, truck swapping, I mean, anything associated with EV trucking. I think, like I mentioned earlier, the system needs to be fixed in terms of someone taking an end-to-end charge. So rather than saying WRI or RMI or any other agency which can kind of step in, we also need to see what we as OEMs, what financiers, what LSPs, what clients themselves can get together and do. And some of it, which you see in the bullet points here, is in the swapping space, there's a lack of standardization where there is no interoperability of different batteries. If I make a battery for a BM truck, then only a BM swapping station can charge or swap that BM truck. Maybe charging has become more universal with the CCS2, but swapping remains very, very in, you know, uh, regulated. It's only the manufacturer who makes it can allow it to be swapped. There's a very high initial investment because swapping stations require land, you require robotic equipment, you require inventory of batteries over and above the batteries which are put on the truck. Grid connections also for a charger, if it might be 240 over here with the swap station, you need minimum 1.5, because everybody who tries different, I would say, combination of swap stations, we have realized that 3 plus 1 is the one which works best. Which means if you have a 3 plus 1 swap station, you need to charge 3 batteries and have 2 gun chargers as a plan B on the outside. Which means you got to take care of 5 charging stations, which is a minimum 1.25 to 1.5 kilowatt capacity. Safety and quality control always. Tax structure is difficult here because there's 18% GST on a standalone battery, but 5% on a new battery which is combined with the truck. So on one side, we're trying to promote swappable, but if you see the structure of taxes, it actually demotivates you from taking a swappable battery. Because if there was parity in the tax structure, the battery cost would come down, which then immediately gets passed on to the customers. Yeah, next one. So regulatory clarity, standardization of battery setup design, quality and safety, a standard GST slab where whether you buy a swappable battery or you buy a truck with a battery, the rate should be the same. We need investment support in putting up swap stations on the state highways, on the national highways. If we can have special rate of interest for the funds, we have impact funds stepping in, we have green funds stepping in. I think that kind of gives a whole new fillip to the EV space. Tax benefits on revenue from swap stations is something we've spoken about. It's all in work in progress. It's all under discussion. If we can get land which can be specified for use, that these kind of parcels cannot be used for anything but charging or swapping facilities, I think it adds a great value to people like us, because we know now that we have something available. It's for us to go grab the opportunity and execute. And planned upgrade of local electricity grid, because sometimes we see everything is ready, but the electric connection takes a lot of time. So these are the couple of points, along with what I mentioned earlier, that rather than any one thing, uh, people are so used to the old internal combustion engine working with one OEM, you know, just producing the truck and shipping it, and balance. There were so many other agencies looking at different aspects of the trade. Whilst in the EV, we expect uh, there's nobody else to do it, but we expect that somebody else will do it. So I think these forums like this are very, very important, where we share the problems, but more important, we must pledge to work together to find solutions in a I would say a limited timeline. It's not like whenever and wherever, but I think if all of us put our minds together and kind of work towards this as a common objective with a laser sharp focus, the solutions are not very far away. Yeah, Kaustubh, I think
Thank
I've
you,
talked.
Rajiv ji. I,
Yeah.
I think there's a very quick video that I'd like to share that was shared by the organization.
Progress has always driven us forward. But today, progress means more than milestones. It means designing with purpose, building responsibly, and powering the future with clean, scalable technology. Introducing India's first electric heavy-duty truck with battery swapping technology and unlimited range. Every curve crafted for performance, every detail designed for efficiency. Setting the benchmark in technology leadership built on BEAT, the Blue Energy Advanced Technology Platform, powering India's green mobility revolution. It is revolutionizing the green freight transportation in India. The journey begins with a battery swap in less than 5 minutes. India's first module to bracket battery technology, built to deliver peak performance across every load, every road, in any traffic and terrain, with unmatched energy efficiency. Every truck, every journey is monitored in real time with our advanced intelligent telematics system, keeping performance and safety at their peak. It arrives at its destination on schedule. No stops, no delays, just silent and effortless motion. Cargo unloaded swiftly. The truck heads back to the swap station. In just 5 minutes, a battery swap is complete, and it's back on the road. Downhill, the battery recharges, transforming momentum into green advantage, more savings, more green miles. At the forefront of decarbonizing India's heavy-duty transportation sector, Blue Energy Motors overcomes the fundamental challenges of electric truck adoption in India. Range anxiety due to limited battery range, charging downtime, infrastructure gaps, and high capital costs. Built for limitless journeys, Blue Energy Motors is accelerating India's goal of transitioning to zero-emission trucks by 2050. Experience, engineering, excellence in motion. The EV revolution begins.
All right. That was a great video. Actually, I have a lot of questions, but I I will take the audience questions first because I took my time to play this video. We have around 12 questions now. So what I would start with is the first one. Have you all already started identifying priority corridors across India where swapping should be the way to go? Uh, are you, and I want to add to that question is, do we have to start looking at corridors as this can be a swapping corridor versus this can be a fixed battery corridor or a EV charging corridor?
Yeah. So the distinction, I think corridors will be a mix of charging and swapping. Let me just give you an example. Uh, there could be a truck which starts from JNPT, which is the port, and it comes to Kalapur. Now, Kalapur, it will need to be charged because the distance it has done and the gradient which is upcoming. Once it crosses the ghats, and then it kind of comes to Talegaon. Now, if it's going to Chakan, a small top-up charger will, a small top-up charge can work. But if he's going to go again further down on the on Ranjangaon or the Bombay Bangalore highway, I just think you'll have to be scientific about the way you do it. For us today, we've taken very broad pillars or broken up the corridor into segments. And
Mhm.
hence we say that these 4 points will require swapping, but it does not take away the fact that there could be charging top-ups required in the middle. Also, what happens is swapping works very well when there are origin and destination pairs. Like you're going to start a cement clinker route. It goes for 150 kilometers. It comes back and it's more defined. But on a dynamic route, you'll never be able to say, at this point I need a charger or at this point I need a swap. And because the routes are not fixed, I think people are originating from somewhere, the destination is somewhere, that calculation will always keep happening. But swapping definitely works when there's a full charge required. If it's a 100% or 80% charge, as we say, from 20 to 100 or 20 to 80, swapping is the only way to go. Whilst top-ups were 10, 15, 20%, it's also a commercial decision to make. A single charger could be as low as 12 and a half to 15 lakhs in terms of deploying.
Mhm.
But a swap station will go to 3, 4, 5 crores, depending on
Right.
where you are. So I don't think there are rules. I think there's data and there's situations on that logistic route which will define and decide swap versus charging, but it will always be a mix.
Okay. That kind of brings me to my next question, right? You spoke about a one-stop solution when it comes to everything related to operating the vehicle, which is where the task part comes in, truck as a
Correct.
service. And
Correct.
in that situation, the swappable infrastructure is coming onto your books, right?
Correct.
But when we have interoperability, right now we don't, and the two
Correct.
OEMs that are there in the market have their own specific connectors
Correct.
that work for their own batteries. And when we do have it, and I hope we do, who will actually take up the cost of deploying these swapping stations? Will it still be the OEMs, or do you think the LSPs, the fleet operators, will have to take it up, or would it be actual like charge point operators who might come into this game?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I think it's going to be the OEMs because it's very important in their agenda to drive deployment or to drive application of the trucks on the road. Secondly, I think even as we are doing it right now, because it's battery as a service, truck as a service, we are gunning for long-term contracts. Like I can't have a swappable battery given to a customer and then he starts filling energy from outside. It will kind of defeat the purpose for my return. So it's going to be an evolving process because even like a guy like a charge point operator, he today has got the ability to spray and pray, look at larger geographies to put up charging stations because the intensity, the number of vehicles which he caters to is different. For me, it's going to be very specific. I'm first of all, my form factor is only 55-ton trucks. On top of that, I know it's going to be point A to point B. So for them to buy his battery and keep it on my balance sheet and then get no commitment for him to come to me for the next 7 years, it's not going to be able to let me pay back for itself. So the initial challenge which I see is that as battery and truck as a service do go out, there's always going to be a lock-in from the customer and the OEM to stay together.
Mhm.
Now, till
Right.
that kind of disseminates or becomes a slightly more easier pull or push, whichever way you look at it, I don't think other people will be able to enter so easily because at least when I buy the truck and or if I finance the truck, I yet have a say in what you do. in terms of if you want to take the battery from me as a swapping, you have to come back to me. But a charge point operator might not be able to do that because it's completely based on the will of the person coming to charge over there. It might be easier to do it in B2B businesses where there's commerce and logistics involved. It's slightly more difficult to do it in consumer businesses because consumer has no loyalty. It's going to be more
Mhm.
about when he needs the charge and where he needs it. Loyalty will not be able to say anything in that particular situation.
Okay. I do have top-up questions to that, but
Yeah,
I want to move to the next one. Uh, and this is an interesting one, right? So when you look at fixed battery trucks, right? We know the energy costs are lower, right? And I from what I understand from the ecosystem, anything below 15 rupees can help you in a positive TCO. But when it comes to battery swapping, uh, the cost of energy is higher, obviously. And how does that relate to a comparative with the TCO, because the way we are saying it is because the unit cost of electricity is low, you're able to compare it to diesel, and then hence your per kilometer
yeah,
cost is low. But here the cost of electricity or the cost per unit goes higher because it's swapping. So can you give us a little bit of an explainer over there?
yeah. So see, I think there are two ways to address this. One is that the cost of per unit of electricity is higher in swapping is because of the infrastructure. I think as infrastructure gets lower and more amortized, it makes sense. Secondly, it makes sense to renew swapping stations with renewable energy rather than using discom energy. It's very difficult to put up a solar for only one charger. But if I have five swapping stations together and say 1.5 megawatt each and five of them 7.5, 10 megawatt, it makes sense on a wholesale basis for me to be pulling in or putting up infrastructure for solar, because solar we've seen is a cheaper input for electricity than your normal fossil fuel related or discom related. The third is with swapping, even though the per unit might be higher, your number of trucks which have to be used on the route might become less, because in charging, if I take 1.5 hours to charge, then I go and then come back and again take 1.5 hours to charge. In 5 minutes, the efficiency which I achieve, can be that I need to deploy less number of trucks on the same fixed route for the same quantity. And that's also where we've driven savings into a TCO. It might be, okay, I'm paying 20 rupees versus 15 rupees, but because I use less number of trucks, I'm able to earn that back, in profit or kind of equalize that. But there are two, three ways to address this. So one is
Hmm.
obviously because it's wholesale in the swap station, renewable energy becomes a more viable option. I think you drive efficiency in the number of trucks on the route rather than just looking at the cost of operation. And third is as infrastructure cost for swapping comes down, I think this will kind of take care of itself.
Uh, this question is again amounting to what we were conversing earlier, right? The risk perception.
Yeah,
And the risk perception is because of the battery as well, right? Do you know how long the battery will last? Do you know how efficient the battery is over a period of time? And these risks are pulled out when battery swapping comes into the place because it's
correct,
your headache rather than the
correct,
customers, right?
correct.
So how is the residual value projected? Does it still remain a risk when it comes to battery swapping, or is it evaluated differently? Because if the battery is not an asset of the e-truck, then how is it affecting a funder's or a financier's perception when it comes to moving to electric, right? Or funding for an electric
Yeah,
truck.
yeah. So I think one part of the question is that when we went to a couple of banks and with the battery swappable model, they said in case of an adverse situation, we want to repossess the truck. And how do we do it? Because battery is yours, truck is somebody else. And if I go to repossess the truck and which happens in the normal, ICE market, uh, you will take away the battery and that time the truck has no value for me. So we have been working collaboratively with them saying that number one, uh, for us, the moment the truck is not working, it affects us also because our installments or our subscription on that battery is equal to or more than what the bank's exposure is on the truck part of it. So,
Correct.
that's what drives us. Number one. Number two, we have given, uh, I think not written guarantees, but sometimes we have been part of the agreements with the LSPs where we do commit to deploy these trucks elsewhere with a conditional deployment where we need to have a network in the other place. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to kind of deploy the trucks where we don't have a swapping network. And number three, I think the residual value is a function of, uh, for us as a wholesale owner, we will always have more opportunities for to be able to deploy this in other second life situations. Like today, people say that 7 years or 2,500 cycles, or 10 years and 3,000 cycles. These are all figures which are being thrown up. But the fact that the battery is ours, and we are kind of experts in managing these batteries, we also take time to understand at what temperature do these batteries kind of outperform their life, at what charging cycles do they outperform their life, what are the best practices to keep these batteries uh, you know uh, kind of give more than what they should. But having said that, this is all now bookish knowledge, because 7 years has not been over in a heavy duty 282 kilowatt truck environment. We are borrowing from China, but yet to be seen. But what we've seen there gives us confidence that it will work here also.
I think as I keep looking at the questions, they keep increasing. Uh, so one question, right? You've spoken about, so this, while the productivity goes up for the battery swapping, what will be the cost of charging, right? What people are trying to understand is, as compared to what the industry is charging when it comes to a fixed charging,
Correct.
how much of a premium are you supposed to pay per unit of electricity?
So
Uh,
we are trying to keep it same. For us, if a transporter or a LSP buys a truck, I will
mhm.
give him one charge for coming to my network. I will not say that if I charge or if I swap, I'm going to charge you different rates. You see, these are B2B arrangements. I have to give him a long-term commitment.
Right.
I have to be with him for 7 years. I don't have the luxury or the option of saying that charging is a separate rate and swapping is a separate rate. For me, it's a single rate. Every time he comes and wherever he comes on my network, I'm going to charge him the same rate. So that's not
Mhm.
anything which the LSP or the client needs to be worried about. It's not going to be any different. In fact, there are some swap stations, like I said, not some, all of our swap stations are going to have two charging guns attached to them as a plan B.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Mhm.
robotics fail, sometimes
Right.
mechanics fail. You don't know, but there's a charging gun. Nobody will go and say charging is 15 rupees and swapping is 20 rupees. For me, the rate is the same. And whatever it
Mhm.
is, it's on my balance sheet.
Uh, is there Are you seeing different payload penalties as compared to a fixed battery vehicle in a swappable battery, or are we seeing the same payload penalties?
Um, I think the low hanging industries today for us, frankly speaking, on the 55 ton have been cement, steel, coal, and the ports. Ports, there's no payload because it's a controlled environment. Nobody goes in and checks. So,
Mhm.
right from 27 tons to 55 tons, the loads move. For cement, we have seen in the clinker movement, they've been given a 5% extra allowance, in the sense, if it's a 55-ton truck and the payload is around 40, they allowed 42 to 42.5 officially. So that kind of covers up for whatever they might have felt that they've lost on the payload was a fixed versus a swapping. So swapping also for us, the battery weight is around 1.7 to 1.8 tons. So the 5% allowance kind of compensates for. Uh,
Right. So two questions now. I'll just combine a couple of questions because I know we're running out of time as well. Uh, you said that around 1.5 megawatt is what you require at a swapping station,
Correct.
and you're trying to keep the cost of swapping per unit charge and the charging per unit charge is the same.
Correct.
But I'm still trying to understand as compared to the market, right? Is
Yeah.
it similar to the market prices, or is it different because you're doing B2B businesses and it'll work out basis what level of
Yeah. So I think in the maybe two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment today, anything between 50 to 21 rupees is what's available. You know,
right,
I think this is only on charging, in the sense
right, right,
this is not swapping. I think where we've seen a lot of swapping take place is the three-wheeler segment, because it's commercial again. So
right,
I again feel that in if it's a commercial arrangement, and like what we are attacking or what we are addressing, there is no scope to differentiate a charge and a swap rate. And where it might be happening, it could be in the consumer section, but I don't think so, because uh, fundamentally what you're paying extra is for that infrastructure piece, the electricity cost is the same. And as and when you do charge more batteries, or you have a higher offtake of batteries, or that kind of business entity is being able to sweat more number of vehicles, it will pay back for itself. You have to understand that in a 5-minute operation and a 1.5 hour operation, the efficiency on a 5-minute operation will give you a pass through of many more vehicles than for a 1.5 hour operation. So there is a kind of a quantity discount or a quantity efficiency which kind of kicks into play, which allows you to kind of, you know, map and match the customer's expectations.
Okay. Two more questions and then we'll stop the number of questions that we ask you. One is from WRI Indonesia. So they are also trying to expand their ecosystem over there.
Fantastic.
And they're trying to see, the question is, you spoke about the mindset problem, right? And what they're trying to ask is, shouldn't we see e-MHDVs as a distributed energy system? And how do we really change that mindset?
So, like I said, you see, I think what is happening is someone, I don't know who that someone is, or a couple of people, I think the mindset is vehicle plus energy plus infrastructure plus software plus
Mhm.
economics, which is the total cost of operations, has to be seen with the same lens. I think what is happening today is if I ship the vehicle, then like in the old days, the petrol was the Indian oil problem. It's
Right.
not. It is Blue Energy's problem. So what is Blue Energy doing today? It is a BEM, which is Blue Energy Motors, which is the vehicle. And there's truck as a service, which is partly energy as a service. It's also the infrastructure to give energy as a service. It's not easy. It's not like saying I just put up a charger and everything happens automatically. There's a lot of infrastructure which goes behind to get the electric connections, to keep the load, to keep the operations running. And the
Mhm.
software, connected trucks, that's going to be something like it's a very recent development in the ICE vehicle segment,
Right.
where uh, manufacturers have gone back to clients with analytics. But from us, it's been a day one story. Like every day we go, because what has happened is the efficiency which a battery gives is the driver behavior, is the gradient, is the temperature, is the load, is the traffic. All this was taken for granted in a ICE vehicle, but from EV perspective, is getting broken down into so many more segments. So unless I participate, and like I said, I don't have the luxury of saying it is somebody else's problem. It is Blue Energy's problem, challenge, opportunity, whatever you might call it. And that's the mindset to change, that we as OEMs need to own the whole system. It's not going to be driven by anybody else now. So I can always say I need help from WRI, but I can't stop at that. I need to keep nudging you. I need to keep coming on these forums. I need to keep meeting LSPs. I need to keep meeting financiers. I think to that extent, the mindset needs to change, because up till now, people kept changing the CEOs. But if you keep changing the CEO and don't change the mindset, nothing's going to happen. It's
Right.
not as easy as saying this is not fixed. That is not just fix it. You got to fix it. And that's
I
where Blue
think
Energy is now stepping out.
I think it's probably because there has been an ecosystem and a strong ecosystem in the ICE
Very strong,
space,
very
right?
strong, very strong.
Where
You
once the
see,
truck has been sold, it is not anybody's
there's
concern.
nobody's problem.
Yeah.
You keep shifting into silos, and the incidence of responsibility just moves.
Right.
So
Right.
that's
So, and the last question is, okay, so from a future perspective, right? Tomorrow, right now, we have a 55-tonner swappable truck, right?
yeah.
And both OEMs who've been doing it is in this tonnage only. When when can we start seeing different tonnage vehicles? First question. Second, and in such a situation, how will these swap stations operate, right? Will it be a different swap station for different segments of vehicle, or will it be one swap station which will have multiple battery sizes and things of those sorts?
Yeah. So form factor of vehicles we are already started developing. So for us, it might not be so much on the tonnage; it might be more on the application. Like tippers is something which everybody's looking at. Waste management vehicles is what people are looking at,
Mhm.
and I think that will be a very personal DNA driven story with every manufacturer. So um, I think uh, the easiest answer to that is you will go to SIAM figures and see which is the fastest selling segment or which is the fastest growing segment, and you'll try and attack that. And that has been partly true for the 55-ton segment, because that has been the one due to the
Mhm.
infrastructure push, which has grown the fastest. The second one is swap stations. Uh, See, it's all mechanics at the end of it, like what we do. There is a RFID which recognizes the truck. There is a battery management which recognizes the battery, and there is a driver's app which recognizes the driver. So
Mhm.
these are three, communication protocols which keep talking to each other. And I don't see any reason why this cannot be seamless. You see, at best, in the swap station, there's only the cradle on which the battery rests for the charging. If that
Mhm.
somehow can be kind of, standardized, that's number one. But the crane movement and the robotics is very easy for different sizes. I mean, it's just, you know, I don't know if you've seen robots work in the Amazon, manless
Right,
stores, and
right, right.
there's so many of them working. It's completely, I think there's no problem as such. It's about the ability and the intent to do it. The capability is all there. So going forward, swap stations will become neutral, as it's a good word to use, uh, and it might become neutral to the same manufacturer. I'm yet skeptical about the interoperability between manufacturers, because of the problem is that I want to keep that customer with me for 7 years to recover my cost of that,
Mhm, mhm.
especially in commercial applications. So yes, swap stations will become neutral, and they will be able to handle different kind of sizes. Uh, I just think that as and when those the demand for those kind of form factors of vehicle comes in, we'll be ready. I don't think there's an issue.
Great. All right. Thank you, Rajiv ji, for being so patient and answering so many questions. There are still many questions, and we'll send them to you. And
Definitely.
we'd request that you share your answers, and we'll share that with the audience again. But this was a really wonderful session. Battery swapping is gaining a lot of momentum in India, and it's heartening to see that there is leadership like yours who's putting effort and thought into how to really make that deployment happen, how to really start looking at corridor electrification. Yeah, with that, I would thank all the audience as well for your questions and patiently being with us for an hour. This, I think, was a wonderful session. Again, Rajiv ji, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all.